This is just a miscellany of photos and not a guided tour of the Arboretum. There are so many byways it is very difficult to describe the routes we have taken. Even after countless visits, we haven't seen everything there is to see, and there is always something new. The Armed Forces Memorial was added in 2007, and although it is now a focal point, there is so much more of significance in the Arboretum, from the grandest memorials to a tree in a hidden corner with a simple label remembering a lone individual. None is of any less significance. Turn left out of the visitor centre past the chapel, worth a video all on its own, past some flower beds, and you're heading to the far east section of the Arboretum. The Suez Veterans Memorial was originally of sand, with the canal running through the desert. Unfortunately, the sand and crushed blue grass proved irresistible to young children, so it had to be replaced with slabs. The Sultanate of Oman has seen British support and lives lost in that corner of the Arabian Peninsula. Now, truly in the Far East zone, there are reminders of so much conflict and suffering, not least in the Far East prisoners of war building. Changi Jail was just part of the terrible treatment of POWs at the hands of the Japanese. There are also memorials to the death railways in this area. The Lich Gate at the entrance to Changi Jail Cemetery was built by POWs in 1942. It's now being re-erected here at the Arboretum. The Burma Star Association Memorial is here too, seen here before it was dedicated. The dedication ceremony took place in the amphitheatre in front of the chapel. Notice how the skyline is still visible, most trees still just saplings. The Shropshire Burma Star veterans laying their wreath. Susan's father is in the centre, with Gurkhas, revered by the veterans for the part they played in Burma, such brave and tenacious veterans. What a contrast now, with the trees forming a beautiful grove around the memorial. Nearby, the Gurkhas have their own memorial. As do the veterans of the RAF in the Far East. More conflict in the Far East. A little further round, and a reminder much closer to home. There are surprises around each corner. Our nuclear test veterans are not forgotten either. Commandos fought and were killed the world over. Sadly, some were executed when they were captured, and not a few died in training. Off the beaten path, and some more unusual memorials. St. John's. Why would monumental masons have a memorial here? This shows why. Some examples of their work. Obviously not the lady in red. This one is very poignant. The merchant navy suffered greatly in wartime. Their grove is planted with a tree for every vessel which was lost. So many, they will have to be thinned out soon. Some individual shipping companies have their own memorials. As do our allies. We hadn't seen this one before. It's the Fleet Air Arm. In the same area, you'll find the Royal Navy Memorial, and this changes as you walk around it. The Falklands War is remembered here too. You can let the train take the strain, but you will miss so much. We mustn't forget the horses who helped us so much in wartime and suffered and died as a result. I think we all remember the stories about evacuee children sent away from their homes to unfamiliar places. The teddy bear and the luggage label with their name and details were essential. Memorials come in all materials. Heading towards Watermeet, we pass the Army chaplains. And towards the Special Forces Grove, an RAF squadron involved with special agents. You can see the bicycle. And their squadron badge. The River Tame is rising. Now in the Special Forces Grove there are lovely gardens and memorials to some very unusual and brave forces. It doesn't sound real, but it certainly was. The Man Who Never Was, of course, the subject of a famous film. And a brave individual remembered here too. The Three Amigos, Brazilians. This memorial is very difficult to photograph against the trees. The lack of engines gives us a clue. They were, of course, very significant on taking the Pegasus Bridge just before D-Day. We're now down as far as Watersmeet, where the River Tame joins the Trent. And it's certainly in flood here. There are memorials even beyond the railway bridge, like the daffodils, flooded. These are the two rivers meeting. The Arboretum is noted for its wildlife. It really is in flood now. Actually, at any time of year, very few get this far. Heading back along the riverbank, very appropriate to find the Royal National Life-Saving Institution memorial. But the boat had already been washed away by a flood. Nearby is a magnificent memorial. Wonderful carving in the slate. This is close to my heart, as I served as an RAF medical officer. The RAF Grove is overlooked by the magnificent Royal Air Forces Association Memorial. The winged eagle really glints in the sunshine. My father served at RAF Havania in 1955, and I lived there as a boy. It's on the banks of the Euphrates in Iraq, a magnificent base, but as hot as Hades. This was our dedication ceremony for the tree and several other trees in May 2002. Commander David Childs created the Arboretum and inspired so much symbolism here. The Reverend Frank Finch dedicates our tree. It was blowing a gale and the sleet was coming horizontally, very different from the weather that he experienced while serving in Iraq. Two years later, and still a sapling. Even the far distant cooling towers are visible. It is now a magnificent tree and no cooling towers to be seen at all. He was our station commander in 1958 and stood up to the Iraqi army when they took over the camp during a revolution. A tree dedicated to Cas Cassano. He led one of our RAF armoured car companies in the Middle East and is a legend. Two more of our RAF stations in Mesopotamia that our association dedicated trees to, and we have members who served there. This squadron served at Habana and in the Gulf during World War II, often in appalling conditions. This is a lovely surprise. Perhaps they were not quite so popular with RAF airmen. Not edible. A sad end for one of the aircrew who were executed, quite unjustifiably. This unfortunate accident, a collision between two aircraft, led to the loss of 26 lives. This is the squadron badge of one of them. The Armed Forces Memorial overlooks the RAF Grove. Off the beaten track by the riverside. He lost his life in the Hyde Park bombing of 1982, along with several horses. This is a picturesque surprise, the Showmen's Guild. There are many personal memorials, and they're tucked away. You have to seek them out or happen upon them. Some larger and more colourful memorials lurk between the trees. Along the river, there is some unusual artwork. And a picturesque bridge marks the boundary of the Arboretum. They were shot at dawn, so they are at the easternmost end of the Arboretum, where the sun first rises at dawn. We're heading back now. And what is this? Paratroopers, and one has landed. This magnificent memorial appears and draws you in to explore and find out. It is to the heroic Polish forces. It seems no one can be forgotten. A quiet avenue, and the hottest day of 2020. Heading back to the visitor centre for refreshments, past a tinkling rill which winds itself around the sloping path. We'll head back out into the Arboretum to see some more sights and look at more of the plants as well. This memorial looks nothing until you walk past it, when it becomes clear who it symbolises. The Star of David. Credit where it's due to the ladies who helped during the war. We're just going to wander along more of the byways of the Arboretum. This one is obvious even from a distance. I'm regarded as a grumpy grandad, but I'm upstaged by this chap who was super grumps. Another oddity. And some lovely autumn colours in the Arboretum, particularly this year. A memorial to the Royal Military Police, but he doesn't have a red cap on. Some more rather colourful memorials hidden away in the trees. I was in Cyprus at boarding school, in 1955 when the Aoka bombed the radio station just up the road from the school. No lives lost then, but there were many lives lost in other terrorist atrocities. As I said before, no one is forgotten. The Gibraltar Memorial, appropriately, has a miniature of the Rock of Gibraltar surmounting it. The long police avenue stretches east, and either side there are trees planted by the various police forces in the United Kingdom, as well as personal memorials to individual police personnel. The blue lamp is a giveaway. And some of men's best friends are not forgotten. This is to remember all those who did all that square bashing. But the cafe beckons. Refueling after our long exploration. Going back 20 years, all you could see then were twigs in plastic tubes. Except for this. This memorial was there even before the Arboretum opened. 20 years on, the Arboretum is transformed. It is so peaceful. And so many bugle calls have echoed around during dedication ceremonies. All those photos and so much more to see. Thank you for watching.